So when we leave here today, I will give you the training plan for everything. I will also give you my email handout. So in the spirit of IB and professional development, everything that I'll use today, I will share with you to use back at home. To give you a little background, Montgomery County Public Schools is where I'm from. I'm an instructional specialist. I started with a PYP and started with the first PYP in the state of Maryland, so I like to say that a lot. It was the first PYP in the whole state. After being the coordinator of that school for about 5 years, 6 years, they asked me to go to the district level to work with the MYP, the DP, and we have IBCC as well. So we have the full continuum. We have about 132 elementary schools, so wrap your mind around that, 38 middle schools and 32 high schools, 22 IB programs within that big, large school system. So one of the things that our large school system is currently doing is using the Common Core through a Pearson grant and writing what Pearson is going to be, the national curriculum is what they're going to sell. So wrap your minds around that as well. So when doing this, we're thinking about how we're rolling out the Common Core to these 131 elementary schools, 32 actually, starting September will be another elementary school built. How are we going to roll this out to them? And what framework are we going to use to roll this out? And I'm going to share some of that with you today. Because what I do as an instructional specialist in Montgomery County is take what we're doing in Montgomery County elementary schools and middle schools and high schools and marry that with the IB, standards and practices. So what Maria did when she went through the standards and practices you see around here, I'm going to play off of that. So Mel talked about the why. Maria talked about what's going on with IB and how they're connecting Common Core and IB. And I'm going to share with you practices from my school system of the how we did it. So going back to the whole continuum. So we're going to do this in a couple different ways. And remember, I'm sharing all this with you so you can have this whole PowerPoint too. By the end of this training, we're going to look at how instructional leaders are laying the foundation for establishing professional learning communities to do this type of work. We're going to explore the knowing versus understanding of the standards, which is, think about the difference between knowing something and really understanding it. And to really do this, you need to understand what the standards are asking. We're going to look at the power essential elements of the standards. What are they asking us to do? And we're going to transfer that through how do we assess this type of standard? What is the standard asking? And how would we get an assessment for this type of standard? So there are my four circles. So again, like Mel said and like Maria said, standards define what children should know and be able to do at the end of each grade level. It's telling you what to do, it's not telling you how to do it. So we're going to talk about how. So, with that in mind, the standards designed to build upon the most advanced current thinking about preparing all students for success in college and their careers. The standards will establish what students need to learn and will dictate how the teaching and learning will look like in the classroom setting. The standards are a set of shared goals, expectations of what knowledge and skills will help students be successful. And the standards require students to systematically acquire knowledge in literature and other disciplines through reading, writing, speaking, and listening. One of those is false. What I want you to do is talk to the person next to you. This is a critical thinking strategy called Decode the Puzzle. One of those bullets is false. Which one is false and why? So talk to the person next to you. So which one is false? Enrique is saying 2. Anybody else have something different besides the second bullet? Why is 2 false? Because the word dictate. The Common Core will not dictate how the teaching and learning looks like in the classroom. It's the instructional leaders, the people in your building that will dictate what it would look like. I think about when I first came to Montgomery County, Maryland. They said, okay, you're hired. Great, you know everyday math, we love you, blah, blah, blah. They handed me a curriculum binder, and they said, here, teach out of this. And I would go to my principal every day and say, the curriculum binder says to teach this. This is how I'm going to teach it. And she would say, nope, go back. You need to teach what the curriculum binder says. And the next day I would go to her and I say, the curriculum binder says this. This is what my students need. This is how I'm going to instruct them. Libby, go back. I need you to be on the same page as the person sitting next to you, in the classroom next to you. And I said, that doesn't make sense. Students don't learn at the same rate and speed. She said, but that's how the curriculum was designed in Montgomery County. Then we got this thing called IB in 2001. And she said, I have a perfect job for you. How about you be the IB coordinator? And I said, yes, because now I asked my teachers, why did they become teachers? And if you ask your teachers that, they will rattle off, most likely, aspects of the learner profile. They want to become teachers because they had that creativity, that, that development of how students learn best and the flow of how students learn best. And when we came to have this thing called IB in Montgomery County, I was thinking, wow, we have this back again. The Common Core is giving our teachers that back again. Not all of them are welcoming it at one time, but it's bringing that back again. It's bringing that creativity back again to teaching. It's bringing that differentiation of instruction back again, because you're going to need to know the standards and how the teaching and learning will look like in your classroom. It's not going to dictate that in the standards. So the second bullet is false. You are correct. Maria put up a event graphic organizer about what does it look like, IB and the Common Core standards. What I want you to think about is which graphic best represents the relationship between the Common Core, the IB standards, and your local requirements. In the essence of IB, you can also have a D and make up your own answer. So talk about that. What would that look like in your A, B, C? And if it's A, if it's C, I want you to think about which one would go where and why. Which one would go where and why? Does anybody want to share their A, B, C, and why? Which one did you pick and why? If you were so dedicated to be here at 3:45 on a Saturday, I know some of you are ready to share with me too. A? A and why?
I mean, we had a little conversation about C, but I think that they're really interconnected, the Common Core with the IB standards with local requirements. And you view it that way. I mean, they should be an integrated whole.
Okay. Anybody pick a different one? Or have a different reason? John, you picked a different one? Oh, you're a sharer. I shared at your presentation.
Yes, Maria. No, I looked at B and had an immediate emotional response, and maybe because I saw it as the worst-case scenario, where they just don't connect. And maybe C is the ideal, where everything is self-embedded. Because if you...
C was self-embedded and everything's the ideal. Would IB stand, what would go in the middle?
In the middle?
In the middle circle.
Oh, the middle.
Of C.
Well, the local standards, IB, and then the core standards are, is that right? Is that the right answer, Maria?
There is no right answer, John.
There is no right answer. One of the things I've been working with in our elementary school rolling this out is getting to the fact that, just like Maria said, IB standards are the core. You're a PYP school first, you're an IB school first, and when we're working with the MYP schools to roll out new units of inquiry, we're thinking about the IB standards first. So I see C as the core if I were to pick C. But this is using reasoned judgment, and you use your best answer, so there is no one right answer. They hate that. They want a right answer. Anybody else pick a different one? Or a different order for your...
I think part of it is philosophical, because where we are right now is we're wanting to show how they're integrated, so teachers don't feel that we're dealing with something different. So as a visual, by showing how they're all part of one connectedness, one whole, at least where we are in implementation right now, it will make it a lot easier for teachers to embrace that.
I agree with what Tony Wagner said this morning too, the buy-in when we're trying to sell this to the staff. And I just finished teaching a training, and I had a teacher in the training. She was near retirement, and she said to me, if you could do anything this week, you can help me understand why. I haven't had a raise in 4 or 5 years. You're asking me to change a curriculum, and I really don't understand why. So we did what Mel did and Maria did, and went back to the data and the PISA data and all the different test scores, and showed them samples of tests. And by the end of the week, she was like, okay, I'm really okay now. But but you can't just sell it. You have to really tell them why. Why are we doing this, and show them why we're doing this. And how we do this is by creating a PLC. What I would have done if I were home is I would have used polleverywhere.com to do that circle. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. It takes 2 minutes. It's absolutely free to create a poll anywhere. If you have active boards or smart boards, it pulls it right up, and you can do the poll right there. It changes things into Wordles. It's just a neat, free thing to use. It kind of did away with all our active votes that we purchased when we bought our Promethean boards, but it's a neat resource. So I just wanted to share that with you. So the Common Core establishes a clear and consistent goal of learning that will ultimately prepare students for college and career. We said it, Mel said it, Maria said it, I'm saying it again. We do this through data teams and professional learning communities. So we're looking at the learning pathways and the progression of the Common Core. It allows the data teams to come alive. It allows looking at data and looking at the teaching and learning that's happening in your classroom to come alive, because the teachers wrap their mind around what is it that we want the students to know and understand. So by allowing that data team to look at the intentional alignment from grade level to grade level, that's how they're going to differentiate. That's how they're going to scaffold for student learning. Data teams collaboratively improve the instructional practices, use standards and a common assessment to share ways to evaluate student learning. And this is how we structure this type of learning about the Common Core, through the data teams and the professional learning communities. The professional learning communities give a structure and function for teachers to have a conversation around teaching and learning. How many of you go to data team meetings or planning meetings? Somebody's eating yogurt, somebody's complaining about Zachary on the playground today and what he did, somebody's grading papers, and somebody else is fixing the printer or the printer in their classroom that didn't work. So nobody's really around the table. And then the bell rings and you have to go pick up your students and you have no time, that you just wasted that 30 minutes. Does that ever happen to anybody? Or is it just mine? By establishing the professional learning communities and the data teams, we gave us a structure. It gave us a common goal, a set of standards to look at and evaluate. So when we got to the end of that time frame where we were planning for instruction and talking about what the teaching and learning would look like in our classroom, we had a ending. We had a product to work with. Rick DeFore says that the strongest way to improve student learning is to help teachers function as a professional learning community. Does anybody use professional learning communities in their schools? And how do they work? Very well. And was it through modeling? How did you get them structured?
We originally asked for volunteers to participate in topics that they were interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And so some were very small, some were very large. We ended up with 23 across the district, 20 schools.
20 schools, 23 professional
Very
learning.
few secondary, though, typically, but most of them were elementary topics. That is what led to the second year growth of each one of the groups.
Our communities, our superintendent is really pushing the professional learning communities for that reason, because the focused instruction on the teaching and learning is what's valuable in that. So, Rick DeFore says that the criteria for an effective PLC is that they have a shared vision, mission, values. They have collective inquiry. It's something that just like you said, something that they're interested in. They're a collaborative team. They're action-oriented and experimental. One of the things that we learned from Tony Wagner this morning that I strongly value, and I tell our staff too, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to try something new and make a mistake. We only learn from our mistakes. But without trying, we're never going to know. So that continuous improvement and that results-oriented. He says that that's the criteria that we have to have for a professional learning community. And then he has questions. What is it that we want our students to learn? How will we know that students are learning, and how will we respond to those students who are not learning? And how will we enrich and extend instruction for the students that already are proficient? So what we're going to do now is think about this criteria, think about those questions, and we're going to get in groups and teams and think about what does that look like, sound like, and how would that be assessed? So if we were looking at a professional learning community with this criteria, with those questions, how would that look, sound, or assess? And how would we assess whether that's an effective professional learning community? So I'm going to ask that you form groups. I'm going to give you markers and chart paper. And we're going to take a few minutes to think about that chart. How would it look? How would it be assessed? And this is sticky, but I don't think it's going to stick anywhere. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to give you this and a marker. Thank you for being flexible with me. Somebody can use this easel. That would work too.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to share this out in a few minutes, your thoughts about how it looks, sound, and assessed. About one more minute, and I'm gonna ask you to share the one that, as a group, that you feel like is the most important for each column. There's your challenge, the one that you feel is the most important for each column. I'm going to ask you to share what the most important aspect that you came up with for each column. Okay, we have the facilitator reporting first. So does everybody have their most important? Yeah. So we're going to start with this one. So if you don't mind wrapping it up for a minute. Thank you. And we're going to go from group to group. Which one is the most important and why?
We thought the most important was reflection, because that is where growth comes from students to reflect on their learning, or teachers to reflect on their learning as well.
So they had reflection in all three columns. Oh, and assessed, it could be assessed like reflection too, student reflection.
They were much more complete than we were, but we'll just take our center one here. Sounds like where students ask questions, they interact, they share experiences, they're working in groups, they're conducting research, they're seeking answers to questions that they pose, involved in inquiry units.
Good, lot. Okay.
Is one for each? Is just whatever?
You can do whatever.
Okay. It looks like shared protocols, like agreements. Sounds like teachers' conversation focused on their teaching and learning, and it's assessed as the assessment is reflected on their students' work, basically.
And their student work. Nice. Okay. Another group for sounds like, assess like. I'm giving.
We thought the essential agreement, that part was, this was most important, the essential agreement. And then basically the total participation, teacher buy-in. We were talking about that might be a problem, more so maybe at the high school, secondary level. Seems like to me middle school teachers buy into it a lot quicker, a lot easier. And positive change, we can actually see some results.
And our last group. One from each column, the most important one for each.
Okay, so for looks like, we thought that everyone being on task for that session was very, very important. And also at our school, maybe, being respectful and honoring, each other's comments or questions. And for assessed, I guess having had goals, maybe probably set from the beginning, having reached that at the end of the time is very important to us.
So laying the foundation for a PLC takes time, work, modeling, and creating those essential agreements of how it's going to look like for your building. But it's important to lay that foundation first so that you don't have to sell it, like Tony Wagner said. The buy-in's not there. You're laying the foundation for it. So throughout the next engagements that we're going to view and explore, I want you to think about why is laying the foundation for a professional learning community important for this work? So if we're going to tackle the Common Core state standards together, why is laying a foundation using that criteria for professional learning communities or criteria that you establish through essential agreements, why is it important for the work that we're about to do with the Common Core? So one of the things, just as a background, when you see the Common Core, the RI is the reading standard for literature, the 6 is the grade level, and the 6 is the number of the standard in that strand. So when you're reading it just like that, the grade level, the number of the strand, and what it is as the strand. What strand is it? Is it reading, language arts, math? Unwrapping the standards. We talked this morning and in Mel's group and Maria's group about the importance of reading the standards through, reading the Common Core and what it's asking us to do. It's also important to get beyond reading the standards, to unwrap them, to delve into them, to think about what is it that we want our students to know and understand. The standards are what the academic learning outcomes are, the what for each of the students' needs to know and be able to do at each grade level. The curriculum framework that IB has developed serves as the roadmap. Just like Maria said, it's the roadmap of how you're going to do that to ensure that all students achieve the desired ending result. The unit of study are the specific lessons, learning experience related assessment topics that you use for that designated standard topic or skill that you're trying to assess. So we have to really think about how we're going to unwrap this together. What we're going to do now is look at a set of standards, a strand of the standards, and it's a strand of the standards from K to 12. I want you to think about how that progression would look and how it would fit best for students' needs for learning. I took off the numbers. I want you to look at how it's read, read it, and look at the progression from K to 12. And how would you put it in a progression? So in those same groups, you're going to get an envelope. And I want you to read the standard and then sort it initially. I'm going to give you a tip in a little bit, and then I'm going to have you resort based on my tip. But I want you to read them first and sort it initially, starting at K, the standard for kindergarten, all the way to 12. One per group. One per group is fine. And I'm going to give you all this. So if you were going to do this, if you were going to take this back to your school, I'm going to send you everything that you can make your envelopes. Okay? One more. So make yourself comfortable. You can use we have extra chairs. You can use the chairs to make your standards. And think about what they're asking us to do. Take about 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes for the initial sort, and then I'm going to give you some tips.